All right, Scott Bass, waterwaystravel.com for expertly crafted surf travel, anywhere from South Africa to Central America to Indonesia to Samoa
What
to
about Fiji?
Mexico.
I've got my eyes. I want to go to Fiji really bad.
They are the preeminent booker for Fiji, Tavarua and Namotu. So, yes,
Yeah, I want to go to Namotu.
me too. A boy can dream. Hmm. It's not in my cards in this phase of life. Mexico feels a little bit more attainable to me,
Yeah, I'd like
but
to take the whole family to Namotu.
that's the way to do it, man. That is the ultimate family destination because there's so much to do other than just surf.
Fiji just has that beautiful blue water vibe, like it's so idyllic. It's just really gorgeous.
Yeah. Have you been?
Oh yeah, been a bunch of times. But
Spoken like a true expert then.
I mean, not a bunch of times. I've been uh twice.
Okay. Yeah, that doesn't qualify as a
No,
bunch,
no,
but
I apologize. I'm overstating things. Would be
once
the
is
first time.
once is more than the vast number of human beings that have ever lived on the planet before, so you're ahead of the game.
Yeah, I went in 2000 for the Quicksilver Pro at Cloudbreak, and I stayed on the Motu with all the Aussies. It was quite a run. It was like Aki and Tom Carroll and Taj and Danny Wills and a bunch of Australians, and they had us there. I was with the photographers like, Sean Davey and Peter Wilson Jolie, and it was fun.
Who won the event that year?
It was a crazy year. I want to say Luke Egan won it. And
That's what came to my mind too.
yeah, Luke Egan won. The waves are really good. He was in the final with um, Guillermo Herdy, the
Crazy.
Brazilian. Yeah. And the waves are smoking good. I got some really great photos from that trip.
Did you get
And
any good waves surfing?
I didn't know I'm a total kook photographer. It was just one of those things where if somebody hands you a camera and you're in the channel sitting there and all you got to do is push the button more or less, you're going to get an insane wet photo, like I actually got an incredible photo of CJ Nelson in just a massive tube and it was published in Surfer Magazine. I was pretty stoked.
CJ Nelson?
I mean, sorry, CJ Hopkins.
Okay. Um, was it auto focus and auto everything on the camera?
For sure. It was digital. It was no, actually it was film.
Okay.
It was film. The guys at Surfer, Jason and Mark Kozai and those guys, they're like, here, take this film, take this camera. And because I went there for the website, obviously,
Yeah,
but it was before I had a digital camera. And yeah, it was fun.
that's hilarious. Well, waterways will get you there for sure, Scott, with your family if you want to go. Um, use the experts. They've been in business now 30 plus years since 1994. So waterwaystravel.com. And then bring your drifties. Driftline.co. We'll save you 15% with promo code SPIT.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to getting a new pair of drifties with the Yamamoto buttery liner. Um,
Now's the
so
time.
So maybe I need to go into driftline.co, promo code SPIT, and order myself some.
Yeah, Driftline obviously is neoprene patented neoprene lined board shorts. So it's just a half a millimeter of neoprene sewn within a technical, functional, stylish board short. And you don't even see it, but it's there and it provides cushion, warmth, and of course, a chafe free surf experience. So you can get yours at driftline.co, promo code SPIT.
As we see some movement at the takeoff zone, it's Kelly Slater grabbing rail.
Yeah, a guy. Yeah, guy, David. It's July 24th, Wednesday, just a few days from the beginnings of the Olympic surf waiting period. And good morning to you, my friend.
Good morning. Let's start real quickly with a little Olympic fodder. Um, I just noticed on Luke, speaking of Luke Egan, you just brought up Luke Egan, but Luke Egan's Instagram account he posted a couple days ago with the caption Team USA and an American flag emoji, with him standing with head coach Shane Dorian, the USA Olympic surf athletes, as well as assistant coaches Tommy Whitaker and Mitchell Ross Carey. 3 of the assistant coaches are Australians.
Yeah, we spoke about this a few weeks ago. I mean, it just seems odd.
We spoke about Mitch Ross being included in the list. I was unaware that Luke Egan and Tommy Witz are now on too, which means there's 4 coaches. 1 is American, 3 are Australians. Are they hijacking the team?
I don't know. I mean, I think I would be more upset if I was an Australian. Like as an
Totally.
American,
Yeah.
I'm kind of glad Luke Egan's my coach. You know what I mean? Like Luke Egan knows his shit.
Yeah.
And I also like Luke Egan because I think in contrast to Dorian, Shane's, you know, I think Luke's more like fucking go out there and get it done. And I think Shane's demeanor is more, I don't know the right word, but he's just a little more, I don't know. Help me out. Do you know what I'm saying? Like Dorian's not
Calculated.
yeah, I guess calculated. I just feel like Luke's more like crack the whip. Come on, boys, let's go. And Dorian's more like, hey man, uh, you know, I don't know how to
Well,
best express it.
they definitely have different personalities. I think there's a lot of backstory in that, like Mitchell Ross Carey has worked with Chris Amore forever. Tommy Whitaker's worked with Griffin Colapinto forever. So these are kind of their already existing stable of coaches and mentors. But it does feel odd. Like the Olympics is the one thing where it is in the rule. I mean, it's objectively divided
Nation
by
state.
nation state,
Yeah.
right? And so
Yeah,
it's just
that's
odd.
what it is.
Yeah, that's the
Yeah.
whole purpose of it. So, and I understand like layers deep, you might get down to a level of, you know, the medical staff or one of the
Right.
trainers or something who is from Yugoslavia or some just different country where they have, but right at the top level, it seems odd.
It does. It does seem odd. Are we the only ones talking about this? Or is the
Yeah.
Australian media discussing this? Or is this a non-issue? Are we I look, I mean, you nailed it. This is a nation state event. Bottom line. These are national flags they're waving. And these are people that aren't even citizens of the flag that they're waving.
Exactly.
You know what? They're immigrants.
Well, the funny thing
I mean,
is, the Luke Egan posting it on his own Instagram account saying Team USA is what makes it weird. If it was just Shane Dorian posting a photo with the team and we happen to notice Luke Egan is there, I almost wouldn't even comment on that one. But the fact that Luke is flying the American flag feels like he traded. He's
is
a
he getting
traitor.
any pushback on Instagram?
I didn't see any. I saw all support.
I'm gonna go on there. Oh well, you recently looked at it.
Yeah, just yesterday. I think he posted it 3 days ago.
And is it a picture of him with the team?
Uh-huh. It's the whole team, except interestingly, John. I'm wondering if John looked at those Aussies and said, you know what? I'm not posing for a photo with you guys. You're not Americans.
Could be.
Well, while you dig into that, I've got listener feedback that I want to read to you, if that's okay.
Yeah, please.
Email came through, said spit high performance surfing in the header. And or in the subject line. And then the body of the email read, hey, David and Scott, David, it's okay. It's not your fault. You're just a victim of time. You grew up in an era of potato chip thin, pointy thrusters. So that's what you know. This, of course, is in reference to us discussing whether or not you could high performance surf on a log. He goes on to say, it's not your fault that you didn't grow up in an era of all types of board styles being used regularly, as this old fart did. Longboards, fish, and single fins of all shapes and sizes were the norm. No matter what type of board you decided to ride on a particular day, you wanted to rip. It's not your fault that you don't recognize high speed flow surfing as high performance. In your formative times, it was slash this, slash that, maybe get some air. Thank goodness that there are a resurgence of various board styles. Now we can all rip and be high performance surfers again. Ask Devin Howard or Joel Tudor if their surfing is high performance. It won't be your fault if they give you the stink eye. Maybe with just a little help from Scott, you two can appreciate that most surfers want to perform at a high level no matter what type of board they are using. After all, we all want to think we were cool enough to do it. Keep up the good work, Wayne Shepard.
Right on, Wayne. Great email. Look, I'm kind of surprised you took that line of reasoning. You know, I don't know if we need to rehash it other than to say you're wrong.
See, I stand by. I think there's just a
The
misunderstanding
way
of
that you put your elbow just like this is like that's some like physiological body statement right there. Like
yeah,
you're like,
I'm
you know
taking
what? This is you basically flipping me off. Basically.
I'm taking
So,
a defensive stance, and I want you to know it by my body posture. No,
thank
I
you.
think when I think back of that argument, I don't disagree with anything that Wayne said, and I think Tony Roberts commented on our YouTube channel about it as well and took your side. To me, we were discussing terms and how we define terms of those of board designs. We were trying to get very specific to delineate what's what. And you brought up high performance surfing. So the context was surfing at large. In my mind, this was the conversation we were having. In the context of surfing at large, if we're saying high performance, then that would exist for a certain style of surfing that can only be done on a certain style of boards. If you're saying, can you surf on a, or could you surf to a high performance on a longboard? Then I would say the context is longboarding. And yes, there's high performance surfing on a longboard and there's low performance surfing on a longboard. Can you surf to a high performance on a mid length? Yes. There's, there's a spectrum there.
What about an everyday board?
Yes.
Okay. Well, that's what we were talking about. We were talking about everyday boards.
No, but your misunderstanding, what I was interpreting was that you're saying surfing is the context and the word is high performance. So in the context of surfing, where does the word high performance land? And I would say that lands on shortboards doing airs. And then over here on this side, there's longboards, and that is a different term associated with it. The context for me was surfing at large. The context for you in your head was, or maybe not in your head, maybe you stated it. I haven't gone back and listened, but the context for you was on a longboard, you can still high performance surf. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that was the distinction, but I don't disagree with Wayne.
I agree with you. I was correct. So
was that what you agree with?
I don't really care. I give up. I will fight no more.
It's because of my stance that I took, my body position.
Right. You that right there just made me back down.
I've got something to follow up with as well in regard to Twinzers in preparation for the Boardroom show. And then I've also got a Who Said That organized. What do you want to go with?
I too have a Who Said That. Real quickly, I can tell you that Luke Egan is getting not a lot, but he's getting pushed back.
Okay, good. Thank you.
And you can go in any direction you please.
Okay. Let's go, Manny. Or I wanted to talk about the Twinzers. The Twinzer is the best in show category at the Boardroom show. Would you like to?
Yeah, this year we do have a call for entries. Each and every board builder in the world is allowed to enter for free one board in the best in show competition. It's a board build off. It's presented by Go Fast Campers. And all you got to do is send me an email. Go onto the website, boardroomshow.com, click on best in show. All the information is there, but it's really quite simple. Build your best Twinzer and bring it to setup day on Friday and with a vertical board rack. And you're in. It's that simple. And there's cash and prizes. And we're highlighting the Twinzer is the category this year.
So 6 days ago, True Ames posted on their YouTube channel a little interview with Manny Caro of Mandala Surfboards discussing the Twinzer. And Manny has personal experience with Wil Jobson. I thought it would be interesting to play that for you here if you want to hear a little bit of that
Sure.
history.
Yeah.
It's about 4 minutes long, but it's worth the whole 4 minutes. So I'm going to play the video.
This whole Twinzer thing we're just still at the beginning of it in terms of its like sort of renaissance. All the guys who've been making them this whole time are going to be rolling their eyes, just like the guys who made fish forever. just like the guys who made hulls forever, just like everything goes in cycles. But the Twinzer, for me, in the beginning was like it all kind of started for me in around 2005. I was shaping in Santa Cruz at the Stride factory, and Wil Jobson had driven his Winnebago down from Whidbey Island and parked in front of our factory, and basically didn't leave and just hung out. And so I got to know him on a daily basis, and like got to know his lizard bongo and the whole Wil Jobson experience. Like I've always considered him like this sort of Albert Einstein trapped in the body of Popeye. You know, he was very much like savant genius level when it came to like anything. Like he could take a tool, modify it to his specs, and it would be something completely different and something new and unique to him, and he would just kind of be like, that's just normal. It's like a spoon or a planer or whatever it was, you know. So he was really inspirational, and during that time there was a big resurgence in an interest in the fish, and in particular the quad fish. All of the guys in San Diego who were really never really stopped making them, and I was trying to make Twinzers, but no one was really interested in them because all of the attention was sort of directed towards twin keels and quads. And so Twinzers kind of went on the back burner for about 17 years until recently, when all of this interest in twin fin stuff, especially channel bottom twin fins, the logical progression from that focused, people who were really getting into twin fin stuff shifted gears into Twinzers because they wanted to try variations on a theme, right? And so it makes a lot of sense to take a twin fin and make it more efficient by adding a canard fin to the fin setup. You got an area of high pressure on one side and low pressure on the other side. And that area of low pressure on the foiled side, that's where you're going to get cavitation. And so in order to combat cavitation, you can make a fin more efficient or more drivey by adding more fin surface area, right? Wil decided to put a lead fin in front of it, where the high pressure side of the lead fin was pressing and directing water to the low pressure side on the main fin, making that fin more efficient. And so you didn't have to have the drag of a big fin. You could reduce your fin surface area, maybe make it more upright and pivoty for the style that Wil liked to surf. He was, you know, surfing all those waves in the point, in the straight up north, just really clean point surf, and he just wanted to skateboard. Really subtle concave bottoms, like 16ths of concave, like nothing. And because he wanted speed and he wanted flow, but he wanted power. And so, you know, recently I've had more and more people asking me about Twinzers, and I kind of dug in through all my old notes. I mean, I had to dig because they were buried, and we'd kind of forgotten about them for a really long time. A lot of people have never forgotten about them, and like Stu Kenson, Larry Mabel, hosts of other people who've been like diehards and like true believers for the longest time. You have to give them props because they're the ones who kind of kept that torch burning. But
I think that's the bulk of it.
Yeah, that was really cool. That was great. Man, he's got a treasure trove of insight and information there, and yeah, I mean, I've been a Twinzer fan for quite a long time. So we're excited about Best in Show, Twinzer board
Yeah.
build off.
I mean, I've paid attention, and certainly through your, interest in Twinzers, but I've not heard some of that information. Like a lot of that was new insight to me. And even though I've heard people explain the benefits or the virtues of the Twinzer, I hadn't heard it explained in that way. So I kind of tend to need a lot of different angles of things explained for me to really fully understand and appreciate what's what. But I also appreciated his story, his one-on-one experience with Jobson, because those
Yeah.
stories are always interesting too.
Yeah. Will made me a board. Um, Will told me a great story about surfing huge lowers during one of those. I think it was in 1997. It was Hurricane Linda,
Okay.
and lowers was pumping. I happened to surf Malibu. It was one of those swells where it's like you go to Malibu and Malibu's 10 feet, and lowers was unsurfable. Like it was so big and breaking so far out there. But Will told me he paddled out and charged it. You have to get through the first layer of massive whitewater, and then once you get out there, you're good. You can catch waves, and it was just Will and his buddy, and the reason the story's sort of interesting is because his whole thing was, because I remember telling him, "Oh man, you must have been on a 9-foot big wave gun," He's like, "No, I was on a 6'2" Twinzer." Like his whole thing was the Twinzer works great in massive surf. You know, and but yeah, Will, I'm kind of kicking myself. I let a friend of mine borrow my Wil Jobson Twinzer, and I've reached out to him since a couple of, 5 years ago. I'm like, "Hey, how's that board treating you?" or whatever. And he's like, "Oh, I don't know. I think I gave it to my kid and I can't find it." And it's one of those things where I think it's gone forever.
Oh no.
Yeah, I'm kind of bummed about it, but whatever.
Well,
But yeah, Wil Jobson, the man.
I heard maybe Bird posted it on his Instagram account that Steve Liss was going to be shaping a batch of boards at Bird's Surf Shed. So they were taking like pre-orders or something. So that'd be interesting too.
What do you mean?
Well, that's an opportunity to get a Steve Liss fish.
Oh, right. I thought we
I
were
mean,
talking about, I thought you meant he was going to make a Twinzer or something.
no, it wasn't. No, sorry. There was no connection to the Twinzer other than shapers who have, gone reclusive, but you get an opportunity to get a board from them.
Well, and as you know, my favorite board of all time, the board that I rode for years, the only board I rode, more or less, for years and years, was a Twinzer. I got it from Sean Madison in probably, I don't know, 2002 or something like that, and rode it forever until I couldn't ride it anymore. It was just destroyed.
Crazy. Well, I hope Manny builds a Twinzer for the Boardroom show. And anybody who's building a Twinzer, seems like if you need information on best practices, Manny would be a great resource too.
I hope that Manny brings a board into the Best in Show.
Yeah.
He's, you know, he's one of the guys. He mentioned Stu and Larry, but he's in that same category for sure. He's one of those guys.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
we've got so many people building boards for this thing. It's killer. I'm super psyched on it. Like they keep coming in. I keep getting emails. Hey, Noah Budrow is going to build a board. How cool is that?
That's amazing.
I know.
Yes, I saw Noah yesterday actually. So, but last year, you're going to run out of room. Last year there was, I don't know how many Bonzers were there, 100.
I know. It's funny you say that because I've been looking at my floor plan going, I might have to flip it around. Anyway.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, anybody who wants to come, we'll be there. Boardroom show, October, 12th, 13th?
October 12th and 13th. Yeah. You're going to want to
Okay.
come check it out. We're honoring Bob McTavish. He'll be there. It's going to be a ton of fun. Of course, presented by US Blanks, my good friends, Jeff and Kim at US Blanks. Hey, I have who said that?
Let's hear it.
All right. Let me see here. If I can pull it up.
While you're pulling it up, I want to say that often you pull these from Matt Warshaw's newsletter. I would like to start a new game pulling from Matt Warshaw's newsletter called What Does That Mean? And we pick one of the 5 words that I don't understand in his email, and we try to figure out the definition of it. This week's word is commodious.
Oh, commodious. That's a great word. I don't know what it means, but it's got to be a great word. Did you look it up?
I didn't need to. Like in the context of the sentence, I understood what it meant, but I never would have thought of the word on my own. And I never probably will use the word again. But he said, quote, surfing is commodious enough to hold your view of God or your Olympic dreams. But no, it is not dependent on those things to give it heft and weight and worth. commodious, meaning it's holds enough. It's large enough to hold all of these thoughts together. So
Spacious.
Spacious, exactly.
Roomy.
Surfing is commodious enough to hold.
Roomy, comfortably spacious, according to Merriam-Webster.
Thank
Good
you.
word.
And thank you, Warshaw. Commodious.
Okay, who said that? And I quote, I got into the production thing with Hobie for a while in 1960 or so. I was at Inter Island Surf Shop in Honolulu building boards, and Hobie came over and wanted me to shape for him that winter. So I went back to California that day. And Bosco Burns, who ran the Hobie's Capo Beach factory, he said, your boards looked just great, but if you can't do 15 or 16 a day, we can't use you. Sorry. Oh, excuse me. So for the very next day, I went in and shaped 16 boards, but I didn't care about them. I mean, they were clean and decent rocker and stuff, but I couldn't really take time for the finer points. And Bosco came in at the end of that day and said, perfect. But that was the time I realized that these people are just popping boards out for people that can't tell the difference. That's when I got into my own thing of I'm going to build custom surfboards. I'm not going to do 15 a day. I don't care about that. I'm going to build good functional custom surfboards. That's why, although the opportunity to mass produce has been offered to me at times, I've never had anybody build my boards but me. David, who said that? Who said that? Was it A, Skip Fry, B, Dick Brewer, C, Mike Diffenderfer, or D, Phil Edwards?
Wow.
There's a lot of hints in there.
Man, oh man.
Do 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 do
Diffenderfer?
do. Yes, Mike Diffenderfer. If somebody orders a Diffenderfer, they get a Diffenderfer. That's courtesy, oh, by the way, of this book that I've been enjoying, Turn and Go, 50 Years of Surf Riding by Steve Pesman. That's from an interview that Pesman did with Diff in 1997.
Great call. Wow. That was a challenge. Lots. So I'm interested too. The idea of he shaped boards that hit the numbers, his own numbers, like rockers right, board was clean, but my heart and soul wasn't in it. And there's an implication there that then it's not as good of a board.
Or it's just not as enjoyable for him, and there's not as much
Okay.
satisfaction, perhaps,
So maybe I was reading into the idea that he was implying that the board wasn't as good. It's more about his satisfaction. That makes sense.
Probably a little bit of both. I mean, he mentions that he couldn't take time to do the finer points of the board design. So there is some implication that sort of a mass-produced surfboard doesn't have some of the finer details, but also the implication that I really enjoy putting the finer details into each and every board.
It's all in the finer details, to be honest. I mean, I feel, I want to, something about my personality or what makeup wants to believe that the sentiment matters, and like him enjoying the process and maybe putting the finer details in makes me enjoy the board better. And even if I don't communicate with the shaper and get to hear his passion for it, there's something that is translated through the energy, through the foam itself, through the love of the process that makes it a magic board in the end that just can't happen otherwise. I want to believe that. I don't have anything to prove that it's true, but I want it to be true.
Yeah, it's a funny thing, right? I mean, there's a bit of romanticism around what you stated, and we all sort of love that. I mean, there's this line that he says here. He says, "I realize that these people are just popping boards out for people that can't tell the difference."
Yeah.
And And so that sort of speaks to, oh, you mean only a custom board? Custom boards are for people that can tell the difference, that are good enough surfers to tell the difference. And there could be some truth to that, but I'll raise my hand right now and say, hey, I've grabbed boards right off the rack and enjoyed the living shit out of them. In fact,
Yeah.
do you remember you and I went up to Lemoore for the Kelly Slater surf day? I forget. That was like 5 years ago, at least, maybe more.
2018, November 2018.
So pre-COVID, I showed up without a wetsuit or a board. I just grabbed a board off the rack. It ended up being a Firewire, a Tomo, I think, or a Dan Man. I forget which one, but I love that board.
Yeah.
That board worked insane. Now the wave, of course, pretty good. I think all boards work good there. Such a perfect wave. But point is that there's no right or wrong. You know what I mean? Like, and frankly, the thing about surfing is, I've also told you the story where I went to El Salvador and my boards didn't arrive. And Jimmy Rotherham had a 5'4" Sunset Surfboards knee board that I could ride, a fish. And it was a knee board. It wasn't a surfboard. And he's like, here, ride this. Or he gave me some options. I'm like, I'll take this thing. You know, Ned McMahon had made it or something. And I love that board. I rode that board at Punta Roca and it friggin' went insane, you know? And so it's not, you know, at the end of the day, it's like, you're just stoked to go surfing. You're just stoked to catch waves.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
whatever's underneath your feet, that's part of the experience of exploring that session, you know? And so, yeah.
Yeah. Well, the detail too about putting in the fine details at the end, you know, like really refining those last few little elements. When you talk to shaper, you'll hear shapers constantly mention how important rocker is. Or I've heard people talk about skip fry rails, you know, just like, oh, those rails, like it's impossible to recreate, you know, but he's got it so figured out. And it's like, well, it's a contour and it's foam, so you should be able to replicate it. Except it's 3-dimensional and it runs over a long, you know, 6 feet or whatever the stretch of the length of the board is. And so having that exact contour adjusting at the exact moment over the course of the thing in concert with the rocker, the exact rocker, which, you know, is also a curve over a long period of, or a long stretch of space. Having all those points match up together are the details I think that diff is talking about. And it matters at the end of the day, like for the surfer riding the board, like a 1/8 of an inch or a 1/16 of an inch of rocker, I think does matter, you know?
Yeah, I agree. And, you know, there's some interesting things in that book, in that interview. Diffenderfer points to Joe Quigg as the guy that basically, there was a point in the late 50s where boards were boards. They were rather rudimentary. And it was just about getting the weight down from like the 80-pound Pacific Systems Homes boards to now something much lighter. And then after they got the boards light, you know, with balsa and stuff, that's when they started to incorporate the concept of hydrodynamic, like really incorporate rockers and foils and stuff. And Diff points to Joe Quigg as the guy that was like, Quigg really understood that, you know, we have this long, you know, format to work with here, and there's a lot going on, and we've got a lot of contours and rockers that all need to be tied together. And anyway, it was a really good interview. Again, Steve Pesman's Turn and Go, 50 Years of Surf Riding. You can get it at thesurfersjournal.com, which is where I bought it.
Good. Well, I feel somewhat redeemed. I finally got one of these correct after many weeks.
By the way, this is the month of the laminator. Remember last time we're like, hey, August is going to be the month of the laminator.
Yeah, it's not the month of the laminator yet.
Oh,
we have
it
one more
starts
week.
in August. Okay.
Yeah. Why, did you have one queued up?
I kind of do, but I didn't understand how to pronounce his last name. And his name is Steve Mangelli.
Oh, yeah.
Steve Mangelli from Rick Surfboards. I'll read a little bit about Steve Mangelli. Bear with me here. Okay. Steve Mangelli, he started off as a laminator at what used to be Rick Surfboards in the South Bay. He ended up buying the manufacturing facility outright in 1976, creating Mangelli Manufacturing. and making boards for various companies, including Rick Surfboards, Kanoa Surf, Natural Progression, many others. In 1980, together with Phil Becker and Dave Hollander, Steve Mangelli opened Becker Surfboards on Pier Avenue. And I believe Mangelli Manufacturing continues to operate in this same facility. His son, John, now runs the deal, laminating and repairing surfboards for a number of brands. I think that they're still there. I'm not positive.
They just closed within the last 6 months, I'd say.
Oh, thank you. Okay.
Yeah.
So do you know
did a long
John?
run.
Do you know John?
I don't know.
Is it John or Joe? I think it's Joe.
I thought it was, I want to say Joe.
Maybe you're right.
Well, we will use that as the precursor into the month of the laminator, because I've gotten some submissions as well, emails from listeners about shops that we need to highlight.
Well,
So,
apparently Steve Mangelli is one of them.
yeah,
he's basically like the South Bay's version of Gary Stuber
totally.
at Moonlight. Like he's a guy that's been there forever,
Yeah, 100%. Rocketmoney.com/surf. Just this week, my wife figured out she was paying a subscription for Showtime, but then also paying for Paramount Plus, which includes Showtime for free. That's precisely what Rocket Money was designed for. A modern tool that meticulously tracks the details that we easily get distracted from. It's a finance app that finds and cancels your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your monthly spending, and helps you lower your bills. It gives you freedom by helping you see your subscriptions in a simple dashboard and alerts you about hidden fees or increases. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has helped save its members an average of $720 a year with over $500 million in canceled subscriptions. Stop wasting money on things that you don't use. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions by going to rocketmoney.com/surf. Calm the clutter in your head, simplify the tedium of your financial life, and find freedom through rocketmoney.com/surf. Awesome. I've got a Who Said That as well. If you're ready for it, I thought that we should do this kind of in light of this is the year of the female surfer. I mean, we're going into the Olympics. You've stated the female story.
We're making up. We've got the month of the laminator, the year of the female. Is it the decade of something that we need to know about? Like,
you know what?
The decade of the board bag?
I think you combine the two of those, and September becomes the month of the female laminator.
Wow.
But you stated in the past, going into the Olympics, the female storyline is one of the storylines certainly to watch. Obviously on the CT side of things, it's been an incredible season for the females. So who said this? Scott Bass, quote, "My dad got stationed at Schofield Barracks, and every Wednesday we had a half day and he'd take me to the beach. I'll always remember my first ride on a surfboard was at Pokai Point or Pokai Bay on the west side. They call it the rest camp because there's lots of cabins and stuff for the Army people. I paddled out into the wave on a 9.4 or something like that, a longboard. I stood up and I remember very clearly the sound of the water clattering under the board as the wave pushed me along. There must have been a light offshore. And it was just a little wave that I caught, just 1 or 2 feet. I don't even remember if it broke, but I remember that clattering sound and the breeze and on my face and the thrill and the adrenaline. That is my first memory of surfing a wave. I was hooked completely from that day on. I graduated to Makaha pretty quickly. Makaha was a bigger wave, a better wave, with way better surfers. I got pretty good out there. It was during the transition period when boards were going short. One afternoon, my mom and dad pulled over to a surf shop on the way home from Makaha and bought my sister Sherry and me a used surfboard. It wasn't super short, but it wasn't a longboard. It was in between, like 7 feet or something like that. I just picked it because the colors were so beautiful. I had no idea how the board would work, and turns out it was way too gunny. I couldn't even turn it. My sister, meanwhile, picked a wider board. Luckily for me, she didn't like surfing, so I ended up riding that board, and it totally ripped. Rel was like a big sister to me at Makaha. I was still a Grom when I got there. I didn't even have boobs yet. She was 6 or 7 years older. We were close. I was friends with Michael Host's sister, Debbie, and she would catch the bus with me out to Makaha on Friday afternoon, and we'd stay at Rel's and we'd just surf together all weekend. Later, after this surfer had a little bit of a career, she says, quote, I was kind of a star, I guess. But actually, at the time, to be honest, I didn't really have much self-worth. Surfing was my whole identity. I was shy and introverted, and surfing was the only place I could let it all out, in the water. I didn't give a crap about anything on land. I think that's why I stayed in the water so many hours at a time. People called me a fish, and mostly I think that I was. I was just trying to not deal with the stuff on land, surfing was my escape. End quote. Who said that? Frida Zamba, Kim Merrick, Lynne Boyer, or Jody Cooper?
Lynne Boyer.
Yep, nailed it. Lynne Boyer was the first female surfer in a surf film to be interviewed, believe it or not. Matt Warshaw posted a clip with Kurt. The filmmaker's name is Kurt Mastalka, and he filmed Lynne Boyer surfing in the film Surf Dance, and then also included a surf interview with her, or an interview with her on the beach. And Warshaw said, quote, if there was a female surfer interviewed on screen in a surf flick before this, I can't think of who that might be. And Lynne Boyer, of course, was world champ in 1978 and 79. She was born in Allentown, Pennsylvania. Her family moved to Hawaii when she was 11, and by the age of 18, she won the state championships. Margot Oberg was the dominant figure at the time, standing upright with connecting turns, whereas Boyer was low, crouched on colorful boards, and more radical, stating that she modeled her surfing after Larry Bertlemann.
Cool. That's cool. I'm stoked to. That was my era, right? Like, so I grew up watching those girls on NBC Sports. They would have the, whatever event it was, the Duke or whatever on TV. And I remember, and of course, I was looking at the magazines and that whole era, Margot Lynn, Jericho Poplar, that was sort of my era with the women surfers.
Yeah. Well, Lynn is still thriving. She lives on Oahu still, makes a living as an artist, in fact. And I think you could buy her artwork through her website. So if you want to search out Lynne Boyer, that'd be cool.
Yeah, for sure.
But I just thought that was interesting. The detail of her being the first female interviewed in a surf film, I think, is an interesting little bit of history.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Well, the funny thing is, Warshaw has the interview on eos.surf, and the filmmaker Kurt Mastalka constantly interrupts her.
Oh,
he
no.
he is interviewing her, and he asks her a question. She gets like midway through answering it, and he pulls the mic back and like, okay, cool. Anyway, and then asks her another question.
Oh my
So
God, that's embarrassing.
kind of a reflection of how females, I think, were represented in surf media, actually.
That's an interesting take. Yeah. No respect.
No respect, man.
What else do you got, Dave?
Well, tragedy strikes in Australia.
Yeah.
23-year-old surfer Kai McKenzie was surfing at North Shore Beach, a very accessible stretch of beach just north of Port Macquarie on the mid-north coast of New South Wales when tragedy struck. According to News 7, McKenzie was attacked and mauled by a 3-meter great white shark mid-morning on Tuesday in crystal clear water and clean conditions. Despite spotting the shark approaching and attempting to fight it off, McKenzie suffered a severed right leg in the encounter. The surfer managed to ride a wave to shore, where he was fortunately spotted by a retired police officer walking his dog, who quickly improvised a tourniquet using the dog's leash. According to authorities, his decisive actions essentially saved McKenzie's life.
Yep.
Paramedics assisted McKenzie on location before he was airlifted to John Hunter Hospital in Newcastle, where he remains in serious but stable condition. Crazily, his leg washed up on shore. They then packed it on ice and transported it to the hospital in an attempt to reattach it.
Holy shit. That's crazy. Well, first of all, as you and I and a lot of people know, that's how people die from great white sharks, is a femoral artery bleed out, which is what was going to occur until that retired police officer put his dog leash to work and stopped that blood from pouring out of his leg. That is awesome. awesome first responder action right there. And the leg part I hadn't heard about. That's next level crazy. And wouldn't that
Totally.
be a great story? Just get that thing reattached and go surfing. Oh my God.
If that actually happens, if they're able to, that would be unbelievable.
That would be. That would just be like crazy next level. I mean, he'd have to have some sort of plates put onto his femoral bone. And I mean, that we'll see.
Yeah.
I'm just glad he's alive. And I read
It's
about it yesterday. It's horrible.
it's a heroic story though. So his name's Kai McKenzie. He's 23 years old. Apparently, he suffered a pretty bad injury previously, like broke his back, I think, surfing, and had made a return and is surfing at a very high level after that bad injury. And now this happens. But the guy is an absolute survivor. Like to come back from the first injury is one thing, but then to have your leg severed and have the wherewithal to be able to get to the beach is just unbelievable, you know.
It's it's a well, more will be revealed. I mean, it's horrific, but we're glad. It's also like right now, there's a lot of optimistic upside here that he's alive and things are going to
Yeah.
get better.
Yeah. Heroic on his part. And then huge shout out to, like you said, that retired police officer having again the kind of clearness of mind in a horrific situation to actually do what needs to be done. Um, there's another, I mentioned to you this article about the surf photographer who was rescued at Chopu. There's been a couple of follow-ups to that story. I don't know if you've been tracking this.
I mean, I saw the stuff on Stab. I didn't read it. Um, I feel like it's a good. I mean, I feel like I don't know. Is there anything else I can learn other than they're
Yeah.
kind of just okay? Go ahead.
Well, I'd be interested to hear your thoughts. There's a large conversation going on about the most recent article that Ryan Miller wrote, and so I'd be curious to hear your take on that. But basically, the story that I mentioned last week was Byron McLaughlin is a 19-year-old photographer from Australia who was out in Tahiti shooting waves at Chopu during a swell. He ended up in the lagoon needing to be rescued by Michel Perez was the one who rescued him. And then ended up being found after that rescue, being found unconscious, floating, and was saved by a couple of water photographers who pulled his lifeless body back to the channel. So we had two major incidents that day. The second one, he was lifeless, would have drowned if he wasn't saved by these water photographers. And he was in a coma for a couple of days, got out of the coma, I think, right before we recorded last week. So that was the story that we discussed. And my question to you is kind of just like, it seems like with the popularity of these things growing so quickly that we're going to have incidents where there's people who are unqualified putting themselves into dangerous situations, and somebody else is going to have to risk their life to save these people. That's what it seemed to be to me. I got a text message from Ryan Miller after the show saying, yeah, that's exactly right. Like, I'm going to be the one who has to save this, and somebody needs to check these guys. It's funny that the hierarchy in the surfing lineup has all but gone away. There's no more localism that protects the safety of the lineup.
I don't know about that. I
All
wouldn't say
but gone
all
away.
of them.
I didn't say go away entirely,
All right.
but he was
There's definitely a hierarchy at Chopu. The surfers know what's up.
and so the story there was kind of like, it'd be interesting if the photographers are kind of the one who have to restate, a hierarchy of what you need to know and what you need to learn before you put yourself into these life-threatening situations. Anyways, that was all last week. What's happened since then is Stab Magazine actually interviewed Byron, the photographer. And then a few days later, Ryan Miller himself wrote an article for Stab detailing 4 instances in the past where Byron caused havoc in the lineup. One at Padang Padang, where he had to be rescued. One at Cape Solander. One at the Box, and then the most recent one at Chopu. In the article, Ryan Miller also got quotes from photographers Dominic Mosquiera, Chris Bryan, and Nate Lawrence, all of whom were in the water with Byron in those exact incidents. And Ryan basically was just giving his own learning gave his story of coming up and learning the ropes and being checked by photographers and knowing his limits, and then cross-referenced his own experience and stories with what Byron had talked about in his interview with Stab. And Ryan was basically saying, look, I never would have been in the position where I'm choosing to hold my camera and forcing other people to rescue me so I don't lose my camera. No camera is worth your life. You ditch your camera to save yourself so that other people don't rescue you. Kind of giving these examples that maybe would have existed in a more localized lineup, that you would have told this to the person face to face, but Ryan doing this kind of publicly in a public platform. So Ryan sent me the article when he published it. I read it. I was like, dude, bravo. It needs to be said, number one, to the offender, but also needs to be said out loud, just as a learning experience for the public at large. I think the evidence kind of that you presented was irrefutable, that he was in the wrong. I'm sure he knows he was in the wrong at this point, but I think there's a valuable lesson here for the greater public to kind of learn from these experiences that other people went through. You know what I mean? But I was surprised to see that when Stab published this article, both on Instagram and on their website, that the commentary was actually pretty critical of Ryan Miller publishing this publicly. The commentary, I'll read one comment. Jackie Moon said, quote, "Wow, this is a pretty brutal takedown. What is the point of this article? Deterrence? Or is it public humiliation of a 19-year-old kid for just a few clicks? With a history of incidents, it sounds like Byron needs a stern face-to-face talking to rather than just getting yelled at in the water by random surf photographers. Did you think to say this to Byron in private before posting this online for the whole world to read? That's how you deal with a kid with this kind of stuff to air it out online in a public forum. I think it's cowardly and humiliating for the poor kid. If this is an attempt of some sort of leadership moment by Ryan Miller, I think it's piss poor and utterly shameful," end quote. So I was surprised to see that sort of commentary. But what are your thoughts?
Well, first of all, I didn't read this, so I'm hesitant to say anything, but I think that there's some valid points that you just read from Jackie Moon. Did Ryan Miller have a face-to-face with Byron? Is it Brian or Byron?
Byron.
With Byron to kind of go, hey man, I know you're only 19, you're young, your prefrontal cortex hasn't even fully formed yet. We get a little, we're not our smartest when we're 19 years old. We get a little gung ho. Here's some things that you should consider. And if that interaction occurred in a private setting and Byron was like, hey, thank you so much. You're right. I'm going to change my ways. That probably could have ended it. So I guess my question is, did that occur? Or was this like,
I have no idea.
Cause when I saw it on Stab, I didn't read it because I was like, oh, it just seems like they're kind of flogging this kid in public. And I think he gets it. Like, I feel like he probably got it last time, but again, I don't know. I'm not here to judge him or Ryan. I don't really know. I do think something needs to be said and that the hierarchy needs to be established among the photographers. If it's just this one kid, which it sounds like, probably the best way to handle it is just a one-on-one in a private setting. If at that point the kid is like, F you, man, I'm going to do whatever I want, then okay. Even then I'm not, I think I just think you just don't ever rescue the kid again. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
I'm busy working, dude. I'm, like, throw your camera away and if you really need to save yourself, you will throw your camera on the ground. I guarantee you that.
Until you find him floating lifeless with his face in the water. That's what literally he was rescued from.
Well, again,
so you let him die at that point?
I didn't say that.
You said I wouldn't rescue the kid. You go, next time I just wouldn't rescue the kid if I saw him.
Well, anybody that's lifeless in a lifeless situation, you're going to go rescue for sure.
That's the situation that the kid had put himself in after these 4 other incidents that Ryan had detailed, where he was sounded by photographers to his face.
I'm not doubting that he needs to be talked to. I'm just wondering if this was the best way to do it. And again, I don't know. There could be personal relationships with this guy, some stuff that happened at these other places that that, and it got to a point where it's like, this guy's not listening to us. We need to air this out in a larger sort of public forum.
Well, so the funny thing to me is people taking umbrage with him, with Ryan publishing this article or Stab publishing this article. They didn't make this public. Byron went on the inertia after the Padang incident and wrote an article publishing his own story. He then got interviewed by Stab and published his own telling of it. It was only until Ryan read that and saw all of the glaring contradictions in Byron's own telling, where Ryan was referencing his own upbringing in surf photography, going, I would never put myself in that position. You glorifying this story that you're telling, that is not that is not, you should be ashamed of that. You shouldn't be glorifying. So that's where Ryan, I think, took umbrage and then wrote the article. It was Byron making, it's not a public flogging of Byron and Byron wanting to be reclusive. It was Byron going out, tooting his own horn, publishing his own stuff and his exploits. And then finally somebody standing up and being like, hey kid, get in the back of the line, check yourself, So I have no problem with the public. And by the way, I don't even have a problem with public shaming in general. Like, I think public shaming, there's versions of it that can be very detrimental and bad, but it's also a very effective tool to correct behavior. And like I said, more importantly, is to set a greater lesson for the greater public, because I think that Byron isn't a one-off incident. I think that Byron is a reflection of the growth of the sport. And there's probably things like this. I can't speak for surf photographers, but I can speak as a surfer and dealing with other surfers, that if surf photography is a reflection of surfing as a whole, then yes, this is probably, Byron is now just a totem, but he wasn't plucked out of obscurity and then whipped in front of everybody. He put his own story out there. And as a result, he's become the totem that is now being made an example of. But I was glad to see Miller write this article. And I thought the evidence was irrefutable. Again, you'd have to read the article, but reading the article, I thought the evidence was irrefutable. And then I thought the voices that he got to comment on record about their personal experience with Byron are also very, very credible voices. And I hope that this message is heard loud and clear for others to not put themselves in similar situations and put others in a situation of needing to rescue them.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, look, there's no doubt that this, four situations is egregious. And, again, I'm hesitant to comment because I didn't read the article, and I don't know Ryan Miller. I'm a big fan of what I see of his on Stab.
You've seen him interviewed and stuff. Like, he's done
he's great.
How surfers get paid and stuff
I think
like
that. He's very refreshingly blunt.
Yeah.
Which is awesome. So look, if something like this, one thing's for sure, this Byron kid, people are on to him. So I think if he isn't straightened out by now, there's no straightening him out. You know what I'm saying?
I totally agree. And the other thing, I think, when I see people trying to protect him from the public shaming, I'm like, you don't need to protect him. Like, first of all, there's no such thing as bad publicity. So yes, you should correct the behavior, but his name's been mentioned now more than any other surf photographer in the last 6 months. And so you can leverage that. And if you actually learn the lesson that these elders are trying to teach you, you can actually now approach from a much more
what would be the best
sophisticated
move?
angle.
What would you suggest that Byron's next move being, that it's time to leverage your name in the limelight? Like, what if you were managing Byron, what would you suggest he do next?
It depends what his personality is, because you can go hard in the paint if you really, are that personality. Like, if you are
double down on
show up at the
going
next
out there to get rescued,
or no, don't go out there and get rescued, but show up at the next swell, get the shots, do your work, publish those shots front and center, and claim it. You know what I mean? Like, that would be one strategy if you're badass enough to actually pull it off.
Wouldn't it be better to, or here's another option, I should say, not better, but to go on the inertia or wherever, if Stab will even have him, I don't know, but do an interview where you're like, wow, lesson learned. These guys were right. I'm starting to get some clarity here. I absolutely am grateful for being rescued and my life being saved. And doesn't mean I'm not going to go out and get shots, because I'm gonna, because I love doing what I do. But I have a whole new respect and understanding about the nuance and the vagaries of being in these lineups and where my place is in these lineups. And so look for me to continue to shoot photos and stuff, but also look for me to learn a lesson here. Like, wouldn't that be like the super slam dunk move?
That'd be the way to slam dunk the story ending. You know, if you want the story to end, but to the point of there's no such thing as bad publicity, that doesn't keep fanning the flames. Like if you want the story to continue and your name to keep being published, then you have to go hard in the paint, like I said, and do exactly what everybody's telling you not to do.
Oh my God. Surfers are the worst, man. Surfers
Not surfers. PR is the worst. This has nothing to do with surfers. I mean, this is just like PR 101. You know what I mean? But again, it all depends. It's if it's insincere, you know, if he actually didn't know that he was doing the wrong thing and now he feels that he is doing the wrong thing, then you're right. Be earnest and sincere and take the approach that you just said. And wear it as a badge of pride and be like, look, I learned my lesson. I apologize. I want to make nice with everybody and learn and do better.
yeah.
But if you want to just grow your profile and, you know, whatever, I mean, but the reality is I don't think that he can get the shots that he wants to get without spending a decade in the water learning the way of the ocean, because he's already been taught. Mother Nature's learned him a couple of times, and he apparently hasn't learned the lesson
he's got
effectively.
a bit of he's a little bit of a knucklehead for sure, but hopefully he'll change, but maybe he won't. Who knows? David,
Well,
Choper.
Yes.
We've got a forecast. It's getting better. The forecast is getting better. It doesn't mean it's great, but the Olympics, I anticipate the first day of the waiting period, Saturday, they're going to have heats. It's going to be 4 to 6 feet with a couple bigger waves. They're going to then have to wait. And I think on Thursday, the 1st of August, Friday, the 2nd of August, Saturday, the 3rd of August, and potentially the last day of the waiting period, Monday, the 5th of August, they can run in waves of, again, it's going to be 4 to 5 to 6 feet.
Okay.
Now, Thursday, the 1st of August is actually pretty solid. It's 8 to 10. And I think that's going to be the day where we're going to see the most excitement, if in fact they run, and a lot of it depends on wind, but it's going to be 8 to 10 feet on Thursday, the 1st of August. Things clean up on Friday and Saturday.
Epic. Well, it takes 4 total days to run the competition. Looks like they have about 8 opening heats of the women's event. And then let's see. Yeah, 8 opening heats of the women's or of the men's event as well. And then if you want to watch in America, you can watch it on Peacock or NBC, of course. And yeah, pretty exciting. The time zone alert is 8 a.m. in Tahiti equates to 11 a.m. in Los Angeles. It's 4 a.m. in Sydney, unfortunately, 7 p.m. in London, 8 p.m. in Paris, 8 p.m. in South Africa. So it's actually a good transition for a lot of the world.
Yeah.
Of time zones.
I think if you're in Sydney, you can wake up early and watch the morning heat. 4 a.m. is not that bad. For a guy who wakes up at 5 a.m., that's no big deal.
Depends on the lifestyle you're living. Well,
okay.
Great news for listeners, Scott Bass. We have a surfboard bag to give away.
Oh my hell to the yes.
Should have led the show with this, actually. I don't know what we were thinking.
A Channel Islands board bag giveaway. By the way, I took my brand new Channel Islands board bag to Indo this year, and it was insane. It was perfect. And I had some airport nightmares where I was in Jakarta and I had to roll my board bag from Terminal 3, which is the international terminal, to the domestic terminal. And I got there and there was people with chickens in cages. And it was just like, I might as well have been at a bus stop. It was crazy in Terminal 1. But thank God I had the board bag I had, because I had to roll this thing around and it was super comfortable and easy to deal with. And of course my boards got there completely safe, which isn't necessarily the case. I have had situation one time I was going to Salina Cruz. And you know me, I don't like to carry a lot of boards and a lot of stuff. I like to be light and mobile, like OJ in the airport and jumping over shit. And so I generally go light. In Salina Cruz, I went light with a board bag. And I got there and we drove in our taxi towards Salina Cruz from Hualtuco about 20 minutes. And all of a sudden that highway got stopped, as you know, probably it often gets stopped there because there's some political stuff, and they just basically, people will roll shit into the middle of the street and just stop traffic as a way to get attention.
Yeah.
And they did that. So I had to get out and carry my board bag and drag my because it was just a cheesy little board bag that I used, thinking, oh, I'm just going to throw this into some guy's truck and I'm good. And by the time I got there, the board bag was ruined because I was just dragging the thing in just crazy humidity and heat for like a mile and a half to get to the other side of this blockade. And my board was ruined. My board bag was ruined. My board was all scraped to hell. So you
Nightmare.
do not chintz on board bags.
I love it. Great story. And you know what? Inspired by that story, in fact, let's make this giveaway about horror stories. It doesn't have to be a travel horror story, but just board damage. Give us a story of a board being damaged. It'll be better if it's like your magic board, if it's your favorite board ever, but a board being damaged that would have otherwise not been damaged if you had it in one of these Channel Islands everyday board bags that you can see on my camera right here above my head. And you can send us your stories. The best, let's do it on YouTube, kind of in an effort to help grow and expand our YouTube channel. Do it on YouTube. Give us your story of a board being damaged that would have otherwise not been damaged if you had it in a Channel Islands board bag. Leave it in the comments section on the YouTube episode that we are on right now. And Devin Howard will pick one winner in a week. How about on Sunday? On Sunday night, Devin Howard will pick a winner. So here's the other thing. Anybody listening to the audio version of this podcast, it takes about 24 hours for us to get the YouTube version up. So you'll have that 24 hours to think and craft your story, maybe type it out in your notes app, and then just copy and paste it into the comments on YouTube. And then Devin can just go scroll the comments, pick his favorite story. You will win a Channel Islands everyday board bag.
You are going to be so stoked. I absolutely love my board bag. And as I mentioned, none of my boards arrived just spotless. I pulled them all out and they're both ways, coming and going. And so, thank you, Channel Islands Surfboards.
Yeah. And so we've probably already discussed this in the past, but Channel Islands took some time, a long time actually, to redesign their entire accessories line. So it's traction, leashes, all that stuff, but the board bags in particular are really incredible. We're giving away the everyday board bag. So this isn't the one with wheels on it for multiple boards. This is for a single board, but they do make them in various sizes. So you can get the one up here, I think is like a 6.0. But what's incredible about it is it's 8 millimeters of foam. Traditionally, the everyday board bags that you can get from any other company are like 4 millimeters. So this is double the amount of foam, which is double the amount of padding. The weatherproof materials are incredible. I can't really get up and show you now, but the flip side of that is white, which is of course reflective. So like the weatherproofing, you could drag it through the humidity and the heat that you were talking about, and it'll still end up in good condition, I believe. Nice. So they're slip proof, the padded shoulder strap. They're just better. They're just awesome. There's spacers inside. There's an extra, you can unzip so that if you have fins on the board, it makes it like thicker and wider in the back. So you can check it all out at cisurfboards.com, of course, but you can win it on our YouTube channel. How about that?
Do it. Come up with, tell the truth. Like we'd like a true story, you know. David, my must-see moment.
If your story isn't better than Scott's, we're just going to give this to Scott. So you got to beat Scott's story. That's important too.
That shouldn't be hard. I'm sure there's going to be a story where there was like a scorpion involved. We've all had those scorpion stories. Maybe a sea snake found its way into your board bag. I don't know. But you know what? On second thought, make it a fake story. Like tell us a good story. Tell us a good fictional story. You know, like that would be pretty cool, actually.
We have no way to vet it either way. So just a good story is what's going to win.
My must-see moment presented by Trees Wax is this short film that's on Stab now, Jordy Smith's plus 27. It's
Haven't
incredible.
seen it.
Oh, it's so good. It's so good. It's just epic waves. And it's Jordy just surfing epic waves. Like it's really good waves, like big, massive, mean, triple spit stand-up tubes. It's really good. And you're going to get fired up.
Jordy's so gnarly in good surf.
He is.
I
Kind of
think I
forget. You kind of forget how dominant he is, you know, like he's sort of flown under the radar the last few years. He's just, he's obviously, I would suggest to you, a better free surfer than he is a competitive surfer. He's got incredible competitive chops, but he's at his best when he's free surfing.
well, he's had his best in good waves. That's the other thing
Exactly.
is the WSL has, or he's just not been done any favors by wearing a jersey and being in mediocre surf. Because if I don't know that I mean, he is at the top 5 of free surfers in the last 20 years, every single year.
Yeah. He's just incredibly powerful and a great style. He's
Yeah.
super smooth. So check out plus 27. It's
I did.
Jordy's, and there's a great interview with him on Stab as well.
Okay. So is there J-Bay footage in that?
Of course.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
there's
Because
some other African waves where he's just by himself. It'll tell you in the interview, he bailed America. He's now living in South Africa full time. And there's just so many great waves down there, and he knows how to get them, and he knows where to go. And he's basically surfing by himself.
amazing. Good for him. I didn't watch the video, but I saw a clip or two on Instagram of that edit. And yeah, he did a couple of big roundhouses at like double overhead J-Bay that I thought should be included in the Michael Peterson cutback contest.
Yeah. Plus 27 on Stab, the Jordy Smith latest drop. It's really good.
Well, I've got the best surfing that I've seen this week, but it isn't my musty moment. But the best surfing I've seen this week was a clip that Bruce Irons dropped on his Instagram account of Andy Irons surfing triple overhead Hanalei.
Wow. I want to see that.
Yeah, it's so simple. Like it's
Bruce Irons Instagram.
Bruce Irons Instagram. I don't know why I said simple. I think the reason why I said simple is Andy doesn't really do any like quote radical surfing. But it's triple overhead Hanalei, and he's just like he's riding a big long, gunny board, and he's going so fast, and he's taking these crazy high lines through sections. Some of the waves he barely does any turns on, but it is just unbelievable surfing. So no big airs or anything crazy, but just beautiful surfing in like really big, powerful surf. So go check that out because that is the best surfing I've seen. But my must-see moment presented by Trees Wax, the only petroleum-free surf wax, is listener George Blair, who's been a listener of yours since the Down the Line days, and he's been a listener of ours for the past 11 years, sent me an email. And he goes, hey, you guys talk about aging quite a bit and how to age gracefully and continue surfing and all that sort of stuff. Well, check out this YouTube channel. And the YouTube channel is called Raw Surf Files. And whoever's running Raw Surf Files interviews older surfers, and he just asks 5 questions. And the videos are like 3 to 5 minutes long. And he's on he's at Garageagon at the surf camp, and there's a dude there from Morro Bay. So he interviews that dude from Morro Bay who happens to be 60. And it's like, how often do you surf is one of the questions, what exercise do you do to allow you to surf? So it's 5 simple questions that are all about, that are older surfers answering them, good surfers, about how to surf into your later years in life. So it's called Raw Surf Files. I will, of course, post it in today's show notes. But if you it's just simple and good information for how to age gracefully and continue to surf.
Cool. Sounds good.
Yeah. Are you watching Andy Irons right now?
I am. Pretty insane. Pretty insane.
I mean, just again, the size of the waves and the speed and like the approach. Andy Irons is surfing triple overhead hollow waves at like I would approach a 3-foot wave at Huntington.
Yeah, it's
reckless abandon.
It's really cool to see big Hanalei like that with Andy surf. You don't see too much footage of Andy at Hanalei, even though it's his home break,
And also on that board, he's riding a board. It's kind of the equivalent of what you would ride a short board at lowers on, except it's designed for triple overhead Hanalei.
Speaking of which, in the California Gold Surf Auction, we have one of Andy's personal guns it's a pipeline gun. That's his personal board, Andy Irons' personal board, and it's signed by Andy Irons. So we'll have one of those in the California Gold Surf Auction if you're an Andy Irons fan.
Is
really
it
beautiful.
Arakawa?
Yep. Arakawa. Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Very
okay.
cool.
Well, look, I feel like we've said a lot. Lots been discussed. Until next time, adios and aloha.
realwatersports.com, Scott Bass, for any and all of your hard good, soft good lessons. If you want a place to stay, Real Water, you want a place to eat, you want a place to drink, you want a place to hang out with your friends. I played wiffle ball with my kid there. Real Water Sports has it all.
Hey, I often, when I'm foiling, I often get asked, hey, is that hard to do? And my go-to thing is, yeah, it's kind of hard. I actually learned in North Carolina, in Waves, North Carolina, at Real Water Sports. They gave David and I lessons. So that's kind of my go-to place to go if you want to learn how to foil. But you can learn how to do a lot there. You can learn how to kite surf, wing foil, surf. And of course, they have a massive and gorgeous sort of a candy store for surfers. There's just so much cool stuff in that retail outlet. And how killer is the food there? They have an insane little restaurant right there. And
amazing.
And then you stay in the condo right next to it, overlooking that little inlet.
I know.
Awesome.
We have not talked about the food at Real Water Sports often enough.
I know.
The food was excellent.
It was.
And incidentally, I was at Christensen's new shop last week recording a podcast, and his manager, her name's Laura, get to talking to her. She worked at Real Water Sports and lived in the Outer Banks for 5 years.
Oh, cool.
And then she relocated out in San Diego, and then connected with Chris through Real, even maybe Tripp introduced her. But we had a long conversation about our love for the Outer Banks. So it's a small world, the surf world.
It is.
Yeah.
Real Water Sports. Go check them out right now, realwatersports.com.